How are we doing? All right. Okay. Welcome. We're really glad you're here. We got a huge crowd today, and we've got people from, actually, our panelists even are from Denver and Baltimore. Did you say?
Yes.
Benet, you're in Baltimore today.
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. And Salt Lake City, Utah. So we're going to introduce our panel in just a minute. And if you have questions, feel free to type them into the text window, and John will be moderating those for us as always. And today we're talking about choosing your advertising mix. And I am Paula Williams.
And I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is to
help you guys sell stuff.
Help aviation companies sell more products and services. And our panelists, of course, are Benet Wilson, one of our very favorite people. And Benet, maybe I know you'll do a much better job of introducing yourself because we haven't talked in ages.
Thank you, Paula and John. It's so nice to be here. Yes, I'm looking at this slide, and I've been a little busy.
You have.
I am currently the co-editor of airwaysnews.com, and I also blog at Aviation Queen. And I've worked at Aviation Week and AOPA, and I'm just a big old aviation geek who gets paid for her hobby.
That's wonderful. And you were actually working, I think last time we talked, on your private pilot's license. How did that go?
Still working on it. Haven't done it. Haven't finished yet.
I haven't finished my instrument. It's hard to get back to that from business. But yeah, good to know you're dipping your toe in the water as well. So that's fantastic. All right, and we also have Michael Dye, who we know through aviation broadcast, but you also do a lot of other things. And Michael, maybe you can tell us more about what you do.
Hi, Benet, and Paula, and I'm just very grateful to be here today and share this with you. And I'm involved in two companies, Aviation Broadcast. I'm a partner in. We're an email broadcast service that was started by my partner about seven or 8 years ago, and we have a subscriber base of around 50,000. We do email broadcast advertising for all kinds of aviation clients, around the country and in the U.S. mostly, but in other countries as well. My partner's based in Prague. I'm in Colorado, and then I also have another company, Business Presentation Solutions, and basically two platforms that I operate, under BPS, and the FBOsforsale.com entity, where we do a lot of work with aviation business owners that are getting ready to sell their company and folks who are looking to buy, and then the FBOconsultant.com brand, which I do a lot of valuation work, business valuation work, and business plan work, that kind of thing. So busy as well. There's never a dull day around here.
Right. Well, we always ask busy people to be panelists, and there is a good reason for that. And that's going to become, I think, obvious as we get into today's topics. And you guys have a lot to say, I'm sure, because you've really been there and done that. And just to kind of set the stage of where our folks are and what we've been talking about. This is the marketing model, long cycle marketing that ABCI uses. Phase 1 is advertising and prospecting. Phase 2, building credibility and closing sales. And Phase 3, referrals, resells, and recaptures. We're kind of starting at the beginning, being January, and we've had a lot of requests from our folks to start from scratch, really, and kind of do a back to basics. This is really what marketing is all about. So if we kind of peel back the cover on Phase 1 and look at this very first row here, you two are the best people I could think of to talk about advertising, your very first contact with a new customer, and how that works. And you guys have very different experience with the kinds of customers or readers or subscribers or members, or whatever we call them. They're all customers, I guess, in a manner of speaking, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Exactly. So that's kind of what we're talking about today, is kind of this first row of blue arrows. And I know you guys both have have very different specialties. So we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say on these kinds of things and how that works. But first of all, let's just open it up. You know, what are your favorite media?
Bené, you want to start?
Sure, I'd be happy to start. I am a voracious reader, and I used to be old school. I liked my paper magazines and my books, and then I discovered the iPhone and my iPad, and now I'm just completely electronic. So if there's something that you've got and you're pushing it, and if you're pushing it by electronic media, then I'm right there with you.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. I know, Bené, you and I met, actually, I think on Twitter.
Yes, we did.
Before we met in real life, and that was at an NBAA convention. So, you know, I started reading your column at that time, and I think that was with Aviation Week, you know, years and years and years ago. You know, but I followed you through all of the different jobs that you've had and all of the different roles that you've had and all of the different media that you've worked on because of that contact.
Yeah, I agree. I think Twitter in the aviation space has just been an amazing thing. I like to kind of play around with different media, and I was an early adopter. I've been on Twitter since 2008, and I just watched the aviation community grow and grow, and I've met so many great people like you, Paula and John, and a lot of other people working in the airlines, airports, just across all fields, and I've made some great connections. So, you know, I'm really, even to this day, still very high on Twitter.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Interesting. Well, you know, I've been around a while, and I think back, especially in the FBO and general aviation businesses, and you know, I think back to the days. I probably shouldn't say this because it'll tell you, you know, it'll date me, but you know, I think back to the days of when you know, Professional Pilot magazine was, you know, starting to do their polls back in the late '60s, early '70s, and you know, that, and now these days, you know, the last you know, 15, 20 years, as I developed my own consulting business, it seemed to me that print publications, although they're, you know, everybody was always looking at them, and they were always at the forefront. I think like Bené says, it's really changed, and the majority of, for my own use, I felt that part of the reason that I got involved with Aviation Broadcast was because I wanted to be able to be involved in that platform and whatnot, you know, to you know, develop my own, you know, my own other businesses. But I also was very interested in it because it really it has, in our opinion, it, you know, it has immediate results for myself, you know, through FBOs for Sale and FBO Consultant, but immediate results for the clients that we serve. And you know, most of these folks these days, I think, although they pick up the print magazines and maybe even utilize advertising in those spaces, it's more, you know, I just see it as an older guy that it's become more, you know, what can you do for me today? How can I have immediate results? And that's, you know, that's through some of the services that we have, and as Bené says, through social media and through, you know, you know, advertising that comes right to your phone or your iPad or you know, your computer. And so favorites, I mean, I think my favorite is just what I said, and it really, you know, it really is just about immediacy, the immediacy of getting your message out as quickly as you can. So.
All right. Let me rephrase that question, you know, for both of you, because I know you both through digital media, but what is your favorite non-digital media for advertising aviation stuff, or, you know, that you like as a consumer of aviation stuff?
Wow, that's a good question because my whole life is digital now.
There you go. I know
that probably, you know, Bené, that probably answers the question. The silence probably answers the question for both of us.
It probably does. And what's interesting though is, we were thinking about who should we include, from the traditional media in this panel discussion. And the thought process was kind of, well, people have been doing, trade shows and magazines and things like that since Orville and Wilbur were puppies. But,
Sure.
Those are things that we cover in more depth. But they're not really phase one activities. They're not as effective for prospecting these days as the digital activities are. Are you finding that's true?
I would agree with that. I don't know what you think. I would agree with that. I think the print media. I get what is it, Aviation International News, and I think I get Airport Business. But in reality, it comes in, and for me, it really sits on the desk until I get time to go look at it and see what it's all, see what the articles are and whatnot. It's not something that I think that I would use as an advertising medium until I felt my company had reached a certain point, and whether that's a price point or whether that's the ability to handle the sort of business that may come in from that, I think we go back to electronic media, honestly.
And I think you take that to another level, because what you're seeing now is, that you've got all this digital material and people are just kind of bombarding you with it.
Yeah.
And I think what we're starting to see is advertisers trying to find a way to cut through the noise. And I know one of the trends that I've been following, just generally, not just for aviation, is branded content.
Right, where you're combining.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, where companies are, instead of just throwing out advertising, they are cloaking their advertising in stories. In the old days, they used to call them advertorials. One example that I think just really sets the tone is the New York Times started taking branded content, and they did a contract with United. And United did this branded content on the Sochi Olympics and some of the numbers. And when they did the measurements, it turned out that branded content got more reader eyeballs than some of the top stories in the New York Times.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember reading about that. That's a great story and a great example.
And I think it may go, Benet, I don't know. I'm watching the news a lot because I'm a news junkie as well. But you look at the four majors, CNN, Fox, CBS, ABC, and maybe BBC, And what's really interesting is the kind of media that they're using, that all of those entities are using, below the line in their space. And I'm wondering if some of that, which is that cloaking that you just talked about, doesn't get as much attention as just the headline news. I wonder if that's the case.
I actually agree with you there, Michael, because if you look at just the whole news cycle, 24/7, go, 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 and as we all know with the aviation coverage, some of this stuff, people are trying to be first rather than right.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We have short attention spans, so
right.
Those little scrolls on the bottom and those little bullet points get more hits than an actual well thought out news story that has advertising surrounding it.
Yeah, that everybody's competing for the same for that same information, whether it's coming off AP or wherever it comes from. It's it's all very interesting.
Right. Benet, I know this is a question that a lot of people are going to ask if they haven't already, and we've had a couple of questions coming in, but in some cases you have a serious story, but you kind of have to sell the story with clickbait. You kind of have to have a great headline or a great hook to make that work. Are you finding that that's true, or how do you balance that? Where I know you do some really fantastic in-depth stories, but then you have to get them to the top of people's minds, and the way you do that is in some cases to actually have to kind of advertise the story.
Yes, I have to do that. I have to kind of push it on social media. That's just built into my process now. And unfortunately, it's true. You know, the clickbait, you see these catchy headlines and you want to click them. And, you know, more and more we're having, unfortunately, to do that because we have to catch people's attention. Because, like, when I started in aviation journalism, you know, there were the publications that we've mentioned, and the general media, except when there was like a big accident or something, didn't really cover aviation to the extent that we did. And now, you know, aviation has become it's global. It's always been global, but now with, you know, all the digital media and news outlets covering these sort of things, we're kind of having to compete with the general media. So you have to resort to these tricks to get your stories read, which is unfortunate, but it's just part of the cost of doing business these days.
Hmm.
That's true. And you've got the similar situation where you have a great email, but nobody's going to click on it unless it has a fantastic headline and maybe a good visual, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just listening to Benet, and it strikes me that she and I are we really are on the opposite ends of the scale in terms of what we do. And from my perspective and being involved with this company, Aviation Broadcast, now for almost 3 years, be 3 years here in a couple months. That what I find is that I get asked the question, from prospective clients every day is how much attention am I going to get? They ask you all the questions. What sort of clicks? What sort of and to me, it all comes down to what we're really selling is we're selling or helping our clients sell as products and services and their companies and themselves. And there's really no magic to it. If you have a good product, or you have a good product and service, or you have a good service, and you have a real, you have a good brand. This is another key thing, Paula, I think that you can speak to. But if you're developing or have developed a good brand for your company and their products and or services, then our subscribers, they tell me when we go to the NBAA and the various conventions, they say, Michael, I may never advertise with you guys, but what I do want to see is what's happening out there in the industry with other folks who may be competitors, with other things, with other products or services or whatever in the industry that are interesting, that I may want to buy, or one of my clients may want to buy. And I've even had clients tell me, we wake up every day and we want to see what the next ad's going to be on Aviation Broadcast. I've got 2 or 3 customers who tell us that. So to me, it's really, you got to have a good product to service. You got to have a good brand. You got to accentuate that brand. And you have to have, a good subject line, but the ad has to really be clean and smooth in many cases, and it's got to be straight and to the point. If so many clients want a lot of, the prospects, they want clutter in there, but to me, it's really cleaning up the branding and the look and the feel, and those are the ones that are successful. The ones that don't want to do that, sometimes aren't.
That's true. I have kind of and this is the one thing that I don't like about Aviation Broadcast, I'll tell you this, live in front of 46 of our favorite friends, but it's not your fault, and it's not the fault of Aviation Broadcast, or it's not the fault of any given media, and that is that it does become kind of a random act of marketing if people don't see it as part of a marketing process. They just throw something out there and they don't follow it up. It's a one-off out of, you never see anything again from that company, and
Right.
It's just not
Right.
connected to any kind of a call to action.
Right.
So,
That's absolutely the case.
uh,
And many of these clients don't understand that it is. I'm looking at the slide, the group of slides that you sent yesterday offline here, and that SEO and social media and the thing that you circled. many of these clients have no clue about marketing, and they want to do something quickly and get their message out there. And sometimes when that doesn't work, they come back to us and say, well, why didn't it work? And
Mm-hmm.
it's just exactly that. It's because you haven't developed, you haven't developed your brand, you haven't developed your market, you haven't spoken to your customer base, you haven't done all the things that you need to do to set this up so that whether it's aviation broadcast or some print advertising or your website or, all these different things that, it's a building process. I see it right here in this, in the, in the slide that you sent on phase one, advertising and prospecting. But some don't get that, and they look at it as this cost that they, aviation broadcaster, whoever. I think if you spoke to some of the other competitors, they'd probably tell you the same thing. Is it's they're trying to do something quickly and economically, and sometimes when it doesn't work because of any of those things or all of those things, they're wondering why it didn't work.
Why it didn't work. Benet, you've worked for some of the best brands in the business. Do you have any advice for how to do that? How to make that cohesive and make that shine through every single stinking communication that comes from Benet? Where it came from, and that it's professional and a great example of the brand that it represents.
I think Michael hit it right on the nail on the head. I mean, if you've got a good product and you work hard to build up your brand, and you have to take that time to do it, then you will get the results. But it does take time. You can't just walk in and say, I've got this great product, but nobody knows who you are and nobody knows what your brand's about or what you're about. That's going to be a much harder sell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm trying to think of, I'll think of some of the recent, in the last year or so, some of the ones that have come along who've had some success. I'll try to think about some of those.
Exactly.
Because there are those that come into the industry and they have something new, and it's fresh and it's helpful, and it is a product that, or it's probably a product that somebody's going to buy. But I can't stress this enough. You have to take the time to build your brand, and you have to take the time to build your platforms. I call them your platforms. It's your web development. It's refreshing that. It's I'm sure with many social media. It's your marketing. It's your marketing program, and we understand that we know that we should be just one of several elements of that people are doing. But in many cases, with smaller companies, we may be the only marketing element that they have in reality, if the truth is.
That's true.
And the other thing is, and I know it's tougher for smaller companies because you have a small staff and everybody's doing everything. But
right.
If you've got a great product and you're pitching me and I'm going to your website and I see a website that looks like it was put together by my 9-year-old, or your website has really dated information. This just happened to me earlier today. I got a pitch and I always go and look at the website and the social media presence because that
right.
tells me you're thinking about your brand and you're looking at it. And so when I go to your website and I see you have news releases, your last news release was in 2013, it shuts down. Another way to get around the thing, if you've got a really good product but you're still trying to build up your brand, if I see an endorsement from a brand that I like, that goes a long way.
Right. So that kind of borrowed credibility by having the Aviation Week or the AOPA logo, saying members of, or, as seen in.
Yes, or not even just for media, but for companies. For example, and I'm just throwing this one out there because it just popped into my head. You think about Signature Flight Support, the FBO network. I mean, that they have a great reputation. They take care of their customers. Their facilities are clean. It's just like the Rolls-Royce of FBOs. So if Signature sees a product and they're using it in their FBOs, that means that their brand kind of transfers to whatever the product is that they've endorsed or that they're using, if that makes sense.
Absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, if you see that they're using a particular brand of ground power unit and you're in the market for a ground power unit, you look at what Signature is using and you think, wow, they can't mess up, so they're going to pick the best in the business. And so that brand out there on that ramp is a great tie-in.
Yeah, agreed.
Great.
So, Vinay, some folks are indicating let's see, has your social media audience followed you from one company product to the next?
Yeah, that is a great question, and the answer is yes. And I can tell you that the last few jobs that I've gotten, a good chunk of it is because of my social media presence. Like I said, I was an early adopter of Twitter. I've got almost 14,000 followers, and that kind of resonates with people because it's like, okay, what's going on? What's she doing? And it definitely is. I see that as an important part of my brand and what I do, both personally and for the company that I work for, Airways News.
And your brand matches really well, I think, with every brand you've been associated with. You haven't gone off and done something for, Fredericks of Hollywood and then come back and do AOPA. I mean, it's just not. You're not doing anything that's irrelevant or off topic. So it's, I think, built on itself.
Yes, and I've had that luxury. And the fact is, I didn't even create this brand. The brand was created for me by the aviation industry. So that makes it even better.
That's fantastic.
And this one's from Michael, I think.
Okay.
What changes have you seen in aviation broadcasts because of legislation?
I'll tell you how what we've done internally. What we've done internally especially the last 2.5 years, is that we keep a very close eye on our subscribers and that database, and who comes in and who goes out. We just keep a very close eye on it because, first of all, I think I had said this when we were talking in the before, that we don't want folks to be subscribed into our database. We don't want to be in. We don't want them to be in there if they don't want to be in there. And part of that is that we sometimes do 2 or 3 ads a day, and other days, when it's before a show or certain events are taking place, Super Bowls or football games or whatever, that we might be doing 8 or 9 ads a day, and we realize that our subscribers are they're sensitive to that. We don't go out and try to find databases. We don't pull in databases that folks are out there trying to sell. We just don't do any of that. I think that's how it's changed from the time when my partner started the business 7 or 8 or 9 years ago, when there really wasn't anything like aviation broadcast. We're just very sensitive. I think you have to be sensitive to the advertisers, and you also have to be very sensitive to the folks who are getting the advertisements in terms of spamming and the ability for anybody to easily unsubscribe and get out. If they don't want to be here, we want them to have that opportunity and move on. So that, right. I think that's the best answer of how it's changed for us.
Excellent. I'm going to shift gears, and we're going to talk about something just a little bit different in just a minute. But let me just add to that. They don't try this at home warning. Anyone who is a client of ABCI or anybody else, we don't want you. What we don't want you to do is to go out and get an email list, from an association or from anywhere else, or even, you have to be really careful, even with your LinkedIn subscribers and other kinds of things. Don't just start sending people email, without their permission. And there are some very specific ways that you can get permission so that it's legal via the CAN-SPAM legislation that's on the books, but we don't want anybody to get in trouble. If you do an email broadcast through Michael's company or through some other legitimate firm, they've already done that work for you. But you don't want to just use your Outlook account and start sending emails to 500 people. That's one of the fastest ways to get into legal issues. So
I think that's the answer of how it's changed, honestly.
yeah. Is that you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so now this is a very controversial matrix. John and I probably arm wrestled over every single square on this matrix, depending on the specific example of, what is the best or worst, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each of these advertising methods. And I just wanted to see if anything stood out to you guys as incorrect or something you wanted to highlight or anything else, just as a conversation piece here. The point that we wanted to make with this piece was that any given method of advertising is going to be inadequate in some way, because not every method is, they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and, so that's why it's always best to use more than one. Would you guys agree with that, or do you have any thoughts on that topic?
Well, from my perspective, obviously, I start with the broadcast email column. We'll just go down.
Exactly.
I hate those guys.
I was going to start with that one too.
What do you think? Okay.
Benet, you go ahead. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, no, it's interesting because I had never really thought about this medium before, and when I started at Airways News, we had it set up but hadn't been done, and my boss was like, okay, we need to start this broadcast emailing now, and I'm like, well, what is it? And kind of researched it, looked at the paperwork, and I have to tell you that I'm kind of sold on it now. Our subscriber base is building up every day. I think the key is, I'm giving them our top stories of the week, but I'm also adding things. Two of my ads. One, we have a very extensive photo library of vintage airline, aircraft, airport memorabilia. And I do a photo of the week with a little history, and people love it. I mean, everybody loves the golden age of air travel. And then I have a weekend reads column where I kind of pick 4 or 5 stories that I've seen in other publications, not ours, and then kind of comment on them and give my thoughts about it and go from there. And it's definitely resonating with people. I was really surprised, but sometimes the old school stuff works the best.
Fantastic.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, as I go down the column, broadcast email, the results are measurable. Just simply because of the analytics that we have built into the systems, and that other people do as well. Targets active shoppers, and you've got to know there. Explain that to me, Paula. What does that mean?
The word broadcast is kind of key there. Obviously you can target an email to active shoppers, people who have clicked a link on your website or have expressed an interest in some way.
Right.
But if you're using a broadcast service, then you're by definition not really targeting.
Right. Yeah. I think the way you framed it, no, is probably the right word. What we see is that most people who are in the DB want to be there, and I think that. Well, let me back up a second. I think the thing that's a little different about aviation broadcast from some of the competitors that do what we do is that we a much higher percentage of our advertisers, our products and services, is averse to airplanes.
Okay.
And there are those that probably 80% of their ads that go out are aircraft sales, a much smaller percentage of something else. We're on the other hand, we just simply, I think part of it is just because of the name. We have a much higher, I'm going to tell you 60-70% of our ads, at any given time over any given, period are things like FBO operations, aircraft maintenance products and services, other things as averse to aircraft. So I think, does it target, do we look at it in a database and say, oh, we're just going to hit all the, whatever, Learjet owners or this or that? No, we don't do that. But I think I would tell you that probably a high percentage of the database at any given time are active. They're active shoppers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in there. Some people might disagree with that, but I see it. I'm like the guy behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz. I see it every day.
Okay, but when compared to things like a print ad, where you are actually selecting, ground support magazine, as an example, I would say of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different media, how does it compare with the others? I would say that would be a weakness, is that it's not really targeting active shoppers as opposed to someone that's actually typing a keyword into a search engine or something like that. But again, it does have its strengths as well. Obviously it's measurable and so on. But,
well, and I think it all, in reality for any of these, I think it all depends on what it is that you're trying to communicate. If you're going to the NBAA, which you watch aviation broadcast 3 weeks out from the NBAA, or we're coming up on a busy time for S&D here. All these people are targeting their active shoppers through those ads. So I mean, I guess it depends on the ad, but it's interesting here. Let's see, social media sometimes, Okay, for back over to that other column, virally spread. You're right, not usually. Lasts until it's removed. Explain that one to me, because I have my own thoughts about this one.
Okay, yeah, so let's say that I do some search engine optimization work, or I write a great article for a magazine or for a website. We get traffic from a article that is 4 years old. I'm not going to get traffic from an email that's 4 years old. If I do a direct mail, then if I send them a magnet or something like that, or a notepad, or something that they're going to have stick around their office, then that has a more lasting value versus a trade show or a print ad or a broadcast email.
Right. The one thing I would say about the broadcast emails that you wouldn't know unless you're able to be behind the curtain with us here is that we see that. Let's for instance, let's say somebody is doing specific services for a type of airplane, or maybe that's use that as an example. All those, let's say, Learjet owners or Falcon owners or whoever, they will look at that ad and they will keep it in their inbox, and they may not click on it they say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything with it right now, but in 3 months, 4 months, I just had one come through the other day on something that was 6 or 7 or 8 months old.
Oh, wow.
For one of our advertisers, yeah. And it's interesting. People will sit on these ads in their inbox, and they save them, and then when the time is right, they click on it, or they pick up the phone and they call, or they hit the email address. It's phenomenal to me. I had no idea until started dealing, in doing this.
Well, I stand corrected. That's why we have you guys on, because
it's pretty interesting. Yeah, and I think you're right on the last 3 or the last 2. I'm not sure what the quick results. Yeah, very quick results in most cases. Good products and services. Good quick results. Expense is very economical. Credibility. I'm not sure what that means. We have the lowest credibility. What are you talking about?
Well, as far as if I've seen something in an email versus having seen it on a print ad in a magazine or having touched it at a trade show, it takes more than one, or it takes more than just an email to sell a product. In most cases, if it's a high-end product, but it certainly is a step in the right direction. And Benet, what are your other favorites on here? I know we haven't. We've kind of been Michael and I have been arm wrestling here, so we'll let you get a word in edgewise.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to go to my obvious one, social media. I'm going to skip over to trade shows.
Okay.
Nice.
Because I feel that in this digitally collected world that we're in, that trade shows are still relevant because it's a chance to put your hands on products, and it's a chance to actually meet people face to face. Not
Yes.
on the phone, not via Twitter or Facebook, not via email, but face to face. And I still think that there's a lot to be said for that, especially if you've got a product. If you're at a trade show, people can put their hands on the product. They can test it out. The people who know the product the best are there to explain and walk people through. And I think that does a lot to kind of keep a certain product in somebody's head. And then, and it's just going to sound terrible, but it's the truth. But if you've got a really good giveaway to go along with what you're
Yeah.
doing at the trade show, because I used to work for Rolls-Royce North America, and one of my jobs was to buy the tchotchkes for trade shows and giveaways and stuff, which was a very difficult job because you can't do plastic pens with Rolls-Royce.
No, you cannot.
Yikes.
Yeah. So when you have something that's, you have that contact, you're meeting people, you're getting those referrals, and you have something really catchy and gimmicky and different to give away, it does stand out.
That is for sure. And, you can combine two media just like we did, where, you're combining social media with a trade show, and then you have something that's actually a relationship.
And Paula, I want you to know I still have that keychain with the photos, the electronic photo holder keychain. I still have it.
That's
Yes,
fantastic.
I have my child's pictures on it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that has found a good home and a good use. That's fantastic. So,
I agree with Benet that there is no substitute for the trade shows, even though sometimes they're very expensive. But I look at it from our standpoint. There's no substitute for the trade shows because it may be the only chance that a product supplier or a service entity may have a chance to actually meet their customers in person.
exactly.
Thinking about that's when it all happens in reality. There's no substitute for face to face.
Right, and we're getting actually some suggestions from the studio audience about combining media, so they're getting ahead of me, which is great. And I wanted to actually kind of explain this concept a little bit, where we have, if you have one line in the water, you're going to catch one fish, and that's if you're lucky, right?
Right.
I don't always catch anything, actually, but I have a fantastic time. And if you are in recreation mode, there is nothing wrong with putting one line in the water at a time with one piece of bait and catching one fish at a time. But if you have a business, you really have to have kind of a more organized or more substantial approach. So using these things as a combination sometimes is a lot more appropriate. So the stability being in diversity, I think is a good analogy for this. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. What are good combinations or good ways of using the media that you use in combination? Maybe what are some examples that you've seen?
Benet, you want to start?
Ooh.
We actually have one from the studio audience, and that is actually this one is from Sharon, talking about using a broadcast email with a website. A landing page or a hyperlink to something that's more lasting. And, I think you actually touched on that, Michael.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer the question more broadly. I'm a firm believer in what we talked about earlier, that you have to have a broad platform of media that you use. I think the website. I think the website is absolutely the key. It's the most basic thing, and it has to be beautiful and professional, and it has to communicate what it is that you do, your company does, your products, your services, how to contact you, how to buy how to buy, all of those things, any and all of those things. I think as the question was asked, this is a common occurrence for us. We either help with developing a landing page, or the clients will say, we're putting a landing page in, help us develop the ad that will go along with that, and the ad goes straight to the landing page. I think everyone, many aviation businesses need to be on. You need to have your top people on LinkedIn. You need to, in some cases, be on Facebook and other things, so that there are various ways to search you, to find out what you're doing. Many of the flight schools that I deal with in the other business, it's just critical that they have a Facebook page along with their websites, because it really is more of a social media element that many of their younger clients accept and want to be involved in. And it's just a broad platform. It's building your brand. It's accentuating that and using every combination that you can to get it out there, to advertising your website. That's how you become successful with this.
Right. Let me throw out another suggestion. How about like a social media ad for an ebook?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There you're getting, a high credibility with a high or a high credibility with a low cost.
Yeah.
So you're kind of combining those strengths and weaknesses. Let's see if we've got some other thoughts from the studio audience. If you have a great one you'd like to talk about, throw it into the chat window.
Well, while you're looking, Paula, I would throw out, with social media, I know that a lot of people tend to see that as the be-all and end-all and a cheap way to get the message out. But with social media, remember that the first word is social. People are going to get turned off if you're just throwing out your marketing speak and advertising in social media. There's a way to kind of talk about your product on social media without making it sound like you're beating people over the head with selling.
Right, exactly. You're not just being a megaphone, you're actually responding and soliciting comments and wanting to hear people's stories and being on the receiving end as much as anything else.
Exactly.
Right.
I think with any and all of these things, the question that's always a challenge, even for us here at Aviation Broadcast and the things that we do at AB and in my other business, it's all a question of time, isn't it? In many cases, it's a question of time. How to use your time most effectively, especially when it comes to marketing and advertising and those things. I think it's a challenge for everyone, honestly.
Right. Another combination that was suggested is postcards and trade shows. That's a time-honored one from, I think, the Orville and Wilbur days, and that still works really, really well. You send a postcard inviting people to your trade show booth, especially, again, with, like Vinay, you said, with a good giveaway or a good offer or a offer of a demo or a consultation or something like that. That's a great combination. Some other suggestions are, reply on social media and get a direct mail package. That's one that we actually do where, people request our ebook or interact with us in some way. We send an information package in the mail so that we get the credibility of physical mail plus, the electronic media. You could certainly do that with a broadcast email as well, where you have a physical offer of an information package or we'll send you a free sample or a DVD or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, so you're combining the physical with the digital.
Does that work with Facebook as well? I mean, do you postcards and Facebook, does that go together or not?
Well, I guess you could actually post a photo of your actual postcard if you wanted. I probably wouldn't though. If you've got like a cool picture that you can attach instead, I'd
Hmm.
probably do that rather than doing the postcard, unless the postcard's really kind of cool looking.
True. Yeah, we've actually done that with our binders every year. When we put our binders together for our course materials, we put a picture of that on Facebook, and people do respond to that and say, wow, I want one. How do I get into your executive brief program? So that's kind of a physical to the social to answer that question. We've got another one. Sign up on your newsletter, or sign up for a newsletter on your website. That's a good combination.
Sure. I
Sponsor
think,
a conference and make sure the materials include, let's see, can you open that one? Down. Make sure that your materials include hyperlinks to a website when you are at a conference. That's a good one.
hmm
What do you think of these QR codes? I've not seen them used as much as they were hyped maybe a year ago. You used to see them everywhere, but I've not seen much of them lately.
No, I don't think much of them anymore. I think that, it was something that came out and people were using it for a while. And I do still occasionally see it, but I don't even have a QR code reader on my iPhone anymore.
Right.
hmm Yeah,
I've seen that done
agreed.
really well with a product demo, where you have a complicated product and people are waiting at a trade show booth to talk to someone. They can scan a QR code and see a little 5-minute video about, and that was actually, I think, done by the camera company, GoPro.
Yeah.
Yeah, about their cameras at NBAA last year. So, a lot of people are waiting to see this, and they happen to have, fantastic video. That's what they do. And they were using QR codes in a unique and cool sort of a way. So I think they're kind of passe, but unless you really find a good hook for that. Another question, how many channels are too many?
From my perspective, I think it all depends on your company and your products and services and who your customer base is.
Mhm.
If you've got your arms around that, again, it's a question of people get bombarded every day, and it's the challenge that we have with our database and our entity. But if you've got your arms around your customer base and uh, you just need to decide, what are the best ways to reach them and keep in touch with them. Too many is too much, but I think it all depends on the company and the products and services, really.
I agree with Michael, and I'd also add that you don't have to do everything, and you can't do everything. I like to
Yeah.
play around, but nobody has the time to try and do Pinterest and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and, just on and on and on. So I always tell people pick one or two that you think that you can do well and do within your time constraints, but the importance is doing it well. Don't try and do everything.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely agree, Benet. I think that's the best. Well said.
We're getting lots of agreement from the studio audience as well. They say, and one comment was, if you can't do it well, don't do it. And I think that's absolutely true. If you can't execute and, make a commitment to try it for at least 3 to 6 months, don't dabble in things and do them badly, I guess is the question.
Exactly. You would rather do one thing really well
Mhm.
rather than a bunch of things badly.
Mhm.
One of the things that we've not talked about is just budget. Many of our clients, they get to a point. We have a lot of entry level clients, I would say, and I don't think I've ever really said that out loud, but we have a lot of entry level clients, entry level into marketing or newer businesses or smaller businesses, and for them it's marketing is one of those things that when they started the year they didn't really think about it or budget for it, but I would say that you really have to sit down, and Paula, you all can talk about this. I'm sure, but you really have to have a budget, and you have to have the budget, and you have to stick to it, and commit time and resource to your marketing efforts, no matter what they are. If you do that, then I think it has much greater chance of getting the outreach that you want, as averse to haphazard. And the other thing with us is it's frequency. You would think that I would preach frequency, because frequency is more money in our pocket, but in reality, I think the frequency has to be looked at very carefully. Is it once a week? Is it once a month? Is it once every couple of weeks? It just all depends on the company and the products and services and events that are coming up and those kinds of things. But budget is certainly a key element of it.
Right. Exactly. I think, my interjection to that would be, when we do a campaign for a particular product or service, we want to use at least 3 different media that cover those strengths and weaknesses. So, we may use an aviation broadcast and an information package and a trade show, those 3 together. And again, that budget has to count for all of those media, and you still have to count in your budget for social media, because that does have a cost, even if it's just your people's time. So great. All right. Well, we've got about 4 minutes left, so I just wanted to give you guys each a chance to maybe wrap this up, and any final words of wisdom on prospecting, marketing, lead generation, advertising, any of the things that we've talked about. Benet, you want to go first, or Michael, either one?
Benet, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, Michael, go ahead, because I'm always going first.
Okay. Well, to me, again, I mean, I preach this. I preach this every day, and I think what we've talked about this hour is, it really is very simple, and you have to develop a good brand. You have to have a cross-platform, and that doesn't necessarily say that you start out with that, but you really have to look at what you're doing now. Where's it going to be in a year, maybe the next couple of years? As we said, you don't have to do everything, but you have to, I think, have a good brand, and you have to have a platform of web development and probably some social media and maybe some broadcast advertising and maybe some print stuff. You have to commit to go to the trade shows or the events that are going to get you clients, get you in front of those people that are going to enable you to sell your products or services. And there's no real magic to it, but it's understanding that marketing is a real cross-platform challenge, and it really behooves anyone to sit, as you start the year, to sit down and think about what you're doing and how you want to, reach out to your customers, and reach out to Paula or to us or to Benet, and we can help with that. We really, I think, understand how all these, we get to see the inside and how these tentacles all come back around to ground zero.
And I agree with everything that Michael has said, and I would just add, not to forget the human element behind all of this, because in the end, you're marketing and you're selling to human beings. So remember that, and just make sure that your messages, along with your brand, that your messages resonate.
Absolutely. And I think, I think both of you have such different perspectives, but, it's really, really cool, I think, for us to have had the opportunity to listen to you both and to ask you questions and pick your mind and things like that. And I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm so glad you guys made time for this. I know you're both super busy with 50 different projects, but and that's why we asked you to come, because you're really successful at what you do.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and Benet, I hope to meet you soon.
I hope so too.
Maybe are you going to the S&D? You're going to be out there?
No, I'm not. I love that conference. I really miss going to it. I've met a lot of my social media friends at that conference. So.
Well, we'll join up at some point, though, and we'll get together some. And Paula, thank you for inviting me. I'm honored. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Paula, and thank you, John.
You could.